Hi, my name is Tom Gelati. I'm a U.S. Air Force officer and pilot. The views expressed in this video are my own and do not necessarily reflect official policy or position of the Department of the Air Force, Department of Defense, or the U.S. government. Thank you for watching this video. This is video number 3. As a reminder, this video is part of a series of videos explaining the situation of my family. After much reflection, guidance, and prayer, I've decided to share our story. My hope is to save my family from the situation we are in. But just as important, I hope to effect policy change to prevent other families from going through a similar situation in the future. As a reminder, I will be reading on the screen behind the camera, so I apologize that I'll not be engaging directly with the camera, and I'll be spending much of my time reading. So if you haven't watched the previous 2 videos, I encourage you to go back and watch those videos before watching this video. What I'm going to read now is the testimony that I had written up prior to our hearing at the Higher Regional Court in Zweibrucken, Germany on December 1st, 2023. I was not allowed to provide this verbal testimony to the court. The court took the written testimony that I had written up. So because it is a German court, the official language of the court is German, and I had written up this statement in English. I had it translated into German and proofread to make sure that it was accurate, and I provided copies of that written testimony to the judges, the panel of 3 judges, as well as the other parties in the court at the time, so they could follow along with my verbal testimony. The judge refused to allow me to provide this verbal testimony. As you will see, it doesn't take that long. It's, I think, if I remember correctly, about 20 minutes. Of course, you'll see by the end of this video, possibly even less than that, to read this testimony. We have been involved with these family courts here for, at the time, a little over 2 years. So asking for 20 minutes of time to share this testimony, I thought was a small request, but the court saw it otherwise. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and read this testimony. Thank you for allowing me to share my verbal testimony with the court. Parental alienation. Healthy parents teach their children independence and self-reliance. Alienating parents create dependency and vulnerability in their children. Alienators need to be needed. Healthy parents love their children more than they need their children. Alienators need their children more than they love their children. In younger children, alienators sow seeds of fear. In older children, they sow seeds of hatred. This ensures the child's undivided love. Healthy parents teach a child that the world is full of imperfect people who make mistakes and sometimes disappoint us. Alienators teach a child to see the world in black and white. People are either all good or all bad. Any fundamental mistakes an all bad person makes becomes the entirety of who they are. Alienators are masters of manipulation, and there are 2 main subtypes. Alienators with narcissistic traits are control freaks. They see themselves as perfect, and anyone who dares to oppose them as inferior. They speak with charisma and conviction. Alienators with borderline traits are sympathy freaks. They see themselves as victims, and anyone who dares to oppose them as abusers. They speak with passion and drama. Regardless of the subtype, alienators are very convincing, and most people are duped. Friends, family members, teachers, coaches, counselors, custody evaluators, guardians ad litem, and their children. The result of this manipulation is that the child aligns himself almost entirely with the alienating parent. There are many reasons for this, and comparisons have been made to Stockholm Syndrome. Whenever the child agrees, sympathizes with, or shows devotion to the alienator lavishes them affectionately and makes them feel like $1 million. But if the child ever falters in their allegiance, the alienator responds with the opposite extreme. This is precisely how cult leaders can manipulate intelligent adults over long periods. Now imagine a vulnerable child who has no escape, being conditioned like this their entire life. The psychopathology underlying parental alienation has been referred to as pathological enmeshment, since the child's personality is subsumed by that of the alienator. It has also been called the gatekeeper phenomenon, since the alienator becomes the gatekeeper of the child's heart and mind. Whatever the alienator likes, the child reflexively likes. Whatever the alienator hates, the child reflexively hates. All this happens long before the divorce. And then, at the time of marital separation or divorce, when the alienator feels rejected by their spouse, even if they were the one to leave, and the alienator fears they might lose the undivided devotion and the alienator fears they might lose the undivided devotion of their children, the actual alienation takes place surprisingly quickly. The gatekeeper simply closes the gate. This is also why mental health and legal professionals often get parental alienation cases wrong. They cannot imagine why a child would suddenly reject a normal, loving parent. They fail to recognize that what looks like a warm, close relationship between the child and the favored parent is actually a long-standing form of codependency. Just listen to my child, the alienator cries to the court. They'll tell you how inferior and abusive the other parent is. The child makes it abundantly clear who they want to remain with, but it is no longer the child who is speaking freely. Alienated children, Alienated children go up hating half of who they are. They are prone to a host of psychosocial problems later in life. This is why parental alienation is not a child custody issue. It is a child protection issue. Next, I would like to demonstrate to the court that I am the best fit to act as our son's primary caregiver using 12 commonly accepted best interest factors. The part of this testimony is a little challenging when reading. So there are 12 best interest factors. Under each factor, I will list the factor and then I will list the sub-bullets and then provide example under those sub-bullets. So I apologize if this is hard to read. I'll do my best to read it in a way that is understandable. Best interest factors. Factor number 1, a child's physical, emotional, cultural, spiritual, and other needs and the effect of the proposed arrangement for the child's needs and development. Under physical, I have provided a safe home and living environment which has been the same home for the past 5 years. And in the U.S., I will provide a safe home and living environment for our family. Under emotional, I am caring, understanding, patient, kind, compassionate, loving, and respectful of our son, including his relationship with my wife and his mother. In the U.S., I'll provide the same environment for growth and prosperity. Under cultural, I have maintained a good community at my current residence. In the U.S., I'll provide community through military and church family. Under spiritual, I have maintained a consistent church attendance since 2021. Our son was baptized in 2022. I have ensured involvement in church activities and events, a consistent prayer life, and reinforcement of spiritual beliefs. The church has always welcomed my wife to join and be a part of our son's spiritual growth and development. In the U.S., I'll provide the same faith and consistent prayer life and will seek out a new community where my wife will be welcome to join her family. Other examples. In the U.S., I'll be able to provide consistent contact and communication with extended family. It will have support due to retired family members' willingness to travel to help, as has been done in the past by trusted family members. Consideration will be given to departing military service if doing so is in the best interest of our son. With my qualifications as a commercially licensed pilot, I will have multiple opportunities for meaningful employment. If this option proves to be the best, I can move closer to family where our son will be loved and supported. I can depart the military as early as October of 2024. Factor 2, any exceptional medical, mental health, or educational needs that the child may have that may require special parenting arrangements or access to recommended services. Under special medical, I have ensured a proper ADHD diagnosis for our son and ensured continued support from his school despite documented opposition from my wife. Under mental health, our son has endured anxiety and distress due to high conflict separation. I have been persistent in seeking emotional support for our son despite documented opposition from my wife. Under educational, our son struggles with schoolwork, focus, and concentration. Due to my persistence in seeking a diagnosis, our son now has access to appropriate school support despite documented opposition from my wife. Under special arrangements or access to recommended services, I have arranged for access to medical assessments despite resistance from my wife. I sought a resolution with school to develop an individualized education plan, or IEP, to ensure school success despite documented opposition from my wife. Factor 3, the reasonable preference of the child if the court deems the child to be of sufficient ability, age, and maturity to express an independent and reliable preference. Under preference of the child. Due to my wife's mental health issues and the persistence of her well-documented parental alienation attempts, it is not appropriate to seek our son's preference, as noted on pages 3, 5, and 17 of Dr. Evans' expert disclosure statement. Under independent and reliable preference. In situations where one parent creates dependency in the child's wishes will not be reliable, as noted on page 9 of Dr. Evans' expert disclosure statement. From the decision of the Kusel Court on 17 November 2021, when asked where he would like to live in the future now that his parents were separated and there was a possibility that he would either stay with his mother and visit his father or go back with his father and visit his mother, he explained that he would like to stay with his mother. He then asked if we would tell the father, and when we answered in the affirmative, he said that he hoped the father would not do something crazy again. On inquiry, he clarified that the mother explained to their son that she worried the father would take her car away. We then explained to their son that it was not okay for his mother to discuss such things with him. Their son then said that she does not do that often. Factor 4. Whether domestic abuse has occurred in the parents or either parent's household or relationship, the nature and context of the domestic abuse, and the implications of the domestic abuse for parenting and for the child's safety, well-being, and developmental needs. Under domestic abuse. My wife has been found at fault for emotional abuse in 2023. She openly emotionally abused our son in 2022 at school when coercing him to make a statement that he is afraid of me. She then took him to the police to make a statement of the same. Under nature and context of domestic abuse. The findings for emotional abuse were, in part, due to frequent, aggressive, manipulative, and false statements made in person and on social media, also known as bullying. Parental alienation attempts by my wife, by coaching our son to be afraid of me, consistently removing me from our son's phone, successfully preventing our son from access to me, and withholding our son from me on multiple occasions from 2021 to 2023. Under implications of domestic abuse. In a memo of family advocacy dated September 14th, 2023, licensed clinical social worker noted, quote, inconsequential stress and increased anxiety because of Mrs. Gelati's behavior. Under child safety. Also from the family advocacy memo, quote, due to the high risk of child and partner maltreatment by the primary custodian, Mrs. Gelati, and it continues on, end quote. From page 4 of Dr. Evans' report, quote, especially in cases of severe parental alienation, it is especially important to suspend contact between the child and the favored parent, typically for a period of around 90 days. It is easier to focus on rebuilding the relationship if only one parent is involved with the child. The environment of the favored parent presents cues, communications, attitudes, and influence that undermine the child's relationship with the rejected parent. Importantly, where the alienating parent has demonstrated a lack of understanding of boundaries and has shown to have engaged in systematic and malicious alienating strategies, the suspension of contact is necessary to ensure that treatment can progress unhindered without setbacks. Under child well-being. From page 5 of Dr. Evans' report, quote, an important component of severe parental alienation is memory distortion and the malleable nature of memory. Memories are not always accurate and can be easily distorted, changed, or suggested by others. This is especially true of children, who are easily influenced by parents. Parents who engage in parental alienation can effectively implant false memories in children, end quote. Under developmental needs. Frequent attempts to hinder support for their son by Mrs. Gelati have negatively impacted their son's developmental needs, including difficulty in the 4th grade. Due to my persistence, our son is now formally diagnosed with ADHD and is receiving the necessary support to succeed educationally. His grades have improved dramatically since the implementation of the individualized education plan. Factor 5. Any physical, mental, or chemical health issues of a parent that affects the child's safety or developmental needs. Under physical health issues of parents and their effect on the child. There are no known physical health issues of either parent. under mental health issues of parents and their effect on the child. From page 51 of the expert opinion of Dr. Schwitzgebel, quote, he, their son, does not worry excessively about the mother, although she, at least for a time, possibly had psychological problems which were also noticeable to the child, end quote. Under chemical health issues of parents and their effect on the child. Due to Mrs. Gelati's refusal to cooperate with psychologist-recommended inpatient psychiatric care and a lack of formal testing completed by Dr. Schwitzgebel, there are no diagnosed chemical imbalance issues documented aside from my wife's informally assessed ADHD. Factor 6. The history and nature of each parent's participation in providing care for the child. Under parents' participation in providing care for the child. I have been our son's primary caregiver since the marital separation in 2021. The lower court recognized this and awarded 50-50 time sharing in the best interest of our son. I have taken over all medical care and appointments, including pediatric visits, well checks, blood tests, dental exams, orthodontist appointments, emotional support therapy, and the like. My wife has removed our son from school under the guise of, quote, appointments. And when asked to share this pertinent information with me, her lawyer simply stated that, quote, a justification for this is not necessary, end quote. Factor 7, and this is a long one, so I have summarized this factor in one statement. So factor 7 is the willingness and ability of each parent to provide ongoing care for the child to meet the child's ongoing developmental, emotional, spiritual, and cultural needs, and to maintain consistency and follow-through with parenting time. I have consistently demonstrated both willingness and ability to provide care for our son's ongoing developmental, emotional, spiritual, and cultural needs, as well as maintaining consistency and follow-through with parenting time, while my wife has demonstrated limited or no willingness to or ability to provide care for our son's ongoing developmental, emotional, spiritual, and cultural needs, as well as heavy resistance to maintaining consistency and follow-through with parenting time. I'll not read each of the examples below as they are captured in the single statement above. So there is a breakdown in my statement that goes through each one of the portions of factor 7. It is very long and it is very repetitive, so I'm going to continue on to factor 8. Factor 8, the effect on the child's well-being and development of changes to home, school, and community. Under changes to home, I've maintained the same family home since 2018. The environment has been maintained for consistency. Family photos are kept throughout our home, including photos of the entire family for the well-being of our son. The home environment is a safe place of love and compassion. My wife has moved residences at least one time since the marital separation. I'm unable to verify that my wife maintains a safe and stable home environment due to the court's unjust decision to withhold our son's address while under my wife's care. Under changes to school, I've ensured that our son can attend the same school to ensure no significant changes to a safe and stable environment, despite my wife's repeated documented attempts to remove our son from school. Under changes to the community, I've maintained the same home and community environment, as well as established a safe and supportive church community for our son. My wife has ensured no communication with me, and I am unable to ensure the safety and security of the community environment while under my wife's care. Factor 9. The effect of the proposed arrangements on the ongoing relationships between the child and each parent, siblings, and other significant persons in the child's life. Under effect of an ongoing relationship between child and parent, I have maintained a supportive and loving demeanor towards my wife and have consistently supported the relationship between our son and my wife since the marital separation. My wife has openly deterred the relationship between our son and me. I've demonstrated that I will support the relationship of our son and my wife if a long-distance relationship should exist. My wife has demonstrated that she is unlikely to support the relationship of the child and father should a long-distance relationship exist, as noted on page 11 of the report from Mr. Kim Jen's Kusel, 31 January 2022. From this report, quote, The child's mother's conscious decision to remain in Germany is also a conscious decision against the child's contact with the child's father and thus not in the child's interests. This in turn speaks in favor of the child remaining with the child's father. Here it can be seen that the attachment tolerance is more pronounced with the child's father. In the case of the child's father, the undersigned sees a greater willingness to allow their son contact with both parents." End quote. Factor 10. The benefit to the child in maximizing parenting time with both parents, and the detriment to the child in limiting parenting time with either parent. Under benefit to the child in maximizing parenting time, I recognize the importance of a consistent relationship with both parents and have demonstrated a willingness to support that relationship in the future. Under detriment to the child in maximizing parenting time, my wife has demonstrated a severe lack of understanding of the importance of the relationship between a child and his father. Factor 11. Except in cases in which domestic abuse, as described in Clause 4, has occurred, the disposition of each parent to support the child's relationship with the other parent and to encourage and permit frequent and continuing contact between the child and the other parent. Under disposition of each parent to support the child's relationship with the other parent. As previously noted, due to the ongoing and unresolved domestic abuse and neglect by my wife, there is grave concern for the safety and well-being of our son if left under the care of my wife. This was supported by a written statement made by Mrs. Thompson, guardian ad litem, appointed by the Lower Family Court in Germany on 25 August 2022. From her statement, quote, "I can only come to the conclusion that the child's mother has at least such a severe psychological instability that keeping the child in the maternal household at the present time is contrary to the child's best interest, if not dangerous." End quote. Under encourage and permit frequent and continuing contact. As previously noted, my wife has demonstrated a severe lack of understanding of the importance of the relationship between our son and me. Factor 12. The willingness and ability of parents to cooperate in the rearing of their child to maximize sharing information and minimize exposure of the child to parental conflict, to utilize methods for resolving disputes regarding any major decision concerning the life of the child. Under willingness to cooperate in the rearing of the child, I've demonstrated a willingness to cooperate with my wife in the best interest of our son. My wife has demonstrated no willingness to cooperate with me in the best interest of our son and has only done so with court intervention. Under ability to cooperate in rearing of the child, I have consistently demonstrated an ability to cooperate with my wife by consistently communicating relevant and essential information about our son to her. My wife has consistently demonstrated no ability to put the needs of our son first. She refuses to cooperate with me as her fellow co-parent and has only done so with court intervention. Under maximizing sharing information, I've consistently demonstrated an ability to cooperate with my wife by consistently communicating relevant and essential information about our son to her concerning school, medical, spiritual, and emotional care. My wife has consistently demonstrated no ability to put the needs of our son first and refuses to cooperate or communicate regarding any care of our son, even when I have requested this information through our attorneys. Under minimize exposure to parental conflict, I consistently make every effort to shield our son from parental conflict and provide him with resources to cope with the stress of parental conflict. My wife has openly exposed our son to parental conflict by using him as a weapon against me. My wife has obsessively made derogatory and unprofessional statements about me on her social media profiles, demonstrating a lack of self-control, which leaves questions about her ability to refrain from exposing our son to further conflict. Underutilized methods for resolving disputes for major decisions. I've sought necessary mental and emotional support to better resolve disputes and misunderstandings in the best interests of our son. My wife has maintained a secretive and deceptive lifestyle and has demonstrated no ability to resolve disputes in a healthy manner. Only through frequent court intervention have disputes been resolved. Finally, I would like to provide my closing testimony to the court. Closing testimony. I am seeking custody of our son. I have been our son's primary caregiver since the separation from my wife in 2021. I am involved in his education, health, and well-being. I have a stable job, a comfortable home, and a supportive network of family and friends. I have also enrolled our son in counseling and extracurricular activities like karate to help him cope and thrive. I love our son. I want what is best for him, and I have consistently demonstrated the ability to put his needs ahead of mine. I know German courts tend to favor mothers over fathers in custody cases, but this is unfair, unjust, and an outdated thinking process. Fathers have equal rights and responsibilities as parents, and should be given equal consideration and respect by the court. A child's best interest should be the paramount factor in custody decisions, and this should be based on objective evidence and not on stereotypes or biases. Denying a child the right to have a meaningful relationship with his father harms his development and well-being. Not granting me full custody or the right to determine residency is tantamount to removing a father from a child's life. My wife has extreme mood swings, irrational behavior, and impaired judgment. She has presented with what appears to be manic episodes, delusional thinking, and possible psychotic breaks. She has also been abusive and neglectful towards our son, who has witnessed her instability as noted in the report by Dr. Fitzgable. She has failed to provide him with a safe, stable, and nurturing environment, exposing him to harmful influences and situations. Our son has suffered significantly from his mother's illness. He struggles with anxiety and low self-esteem. His trouble concentrating at school appears to be due to his now diagnosed ADHD, which my wife has historically refused to accept. He needs professional help and support to heal from the trauma he has endured. He also needs a consistent and loving father who can provide him with the guidance, protection, and care he deserves. I have and will continue to provide that for him. His mother suffers from severe mental health issues, which makes her unfit to care for our son without proper mental health treatment. I have supplied the courts with ample evidence of her condition and how it has negatively affected our son. Her detrimental behavior has been apparent to the courts for over 2 years. Please consider all factual information in this matter. I want to acknowledge that what I am saying is hurtful to my wife, and that her mental health struggles are not her fault. She has endured a lot of trauma and abuse as a child, which has led to difficulties adjusting to healthy relationships, and coping mechanisms because of these issues have never properly been dealt with through therapy or medication. My intent is not to point the finger, rather I hope to break the cycle and give our son a chance to develop healthy relationships and coping mechanisms. I also want to express my concern that, as a father, I have yet to receive fair and equal treatment from the courts, which does not align with the justice system's values. The Landstuhl court issued a no-contact order against me without a valid reason. When asked to provide further explanation to support keeping the no-contact order in place, my wife failed to provide any credible evidence, yet the court did not remove the order. Despite this, I respected and honored the court order. Furthermore, when my wife failed to attend a court hearing, the Landstuhl family court judge stated that she would face a fine. However, instead of fining her for not showing up, I was ordered to pay her half of the court fees for that hearing. This was the same hearing where I was unjustly denied the opportunity to travel outside of Germany, but still in the EU with our son. Lastly, my wife violated 2 court orders in August of 2023, and instead of punishing her for this defiant behavior, the judge threatened to take our son away from both parents. Therefore, I respectfully request that you grant me custody of our son and limit his mother's visitation rights. I also ask that you order his mother to undergo psychiatric treatment and drug testing and conditions of her visitation rights. This is the only way to ensure our son's safety, security, and well-being. Thank you. Thank you for watching this video. Please watch the subsequent videos to learn more. Please also consider sharing this with your local, state, and national representatives to create awareness.